On January 7, 2025, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Meta, announced a significant shift in the company's content moderation policies, stating that the organization would discontinue its third-party fact-checking program in the United States. This decision, which is seen as a strategic pivot towards embracing free speech, coincides with the anticipated return of Donald Trump to the presidency and the desire to mend relations with conservative audiences. Background of the fact-checking program. Meta, which owns major platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, launched its independent fact-checking initiative in 2016 aimed at curbing the spread of misinformation. This program involved partnerships with independent organizations to evaluate the accuracy of content shared on Meta's platforms, with the intention of providing users with reliable information about viral claims. However, over the years, the company faced criticism from various political factions, particularly conservatives, who accused Meta of bias and censorship. Announcement of changes. In a video statement, Zuckerberg expressed that the current fact-checking approach had become overly complex and resulted in numerous errors, leading to the unintended suppression of legitimate content. "We've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship," he remarked. The new strategy involves the implementation of a community notes system where users can annotate posts and contribute to the discourse surrounding misinformation. This model aims to empower the community rather than relying on external fact-checkers, echoing a similar approach adopted by X, formerly known as Twitter. Key changes implemented. 1. End of the fact-checking program. The independent fact-checking system, which was designed to identify and mitigate misinformation, will be replaced by the Community Notes initiative, allowing users to provide context and annotations to posts. Zuckerberg emphasized that this shift is intended to enhance user engagement and reduce perceived biases in moderation. 2. Restoration of free expression. Zuckerberg articulated a desire to return to the foundational principle of free expression, indicating that the previous moderation policies had strayed too far from this ideal. He acknowledged that this approach would likely lead to an increase in bad stuff on the platform, framing it as a trade-off for greater freedom of speech. 3. Changes to content moderation policies. Meta will relax restrictions on various political topics and increase visibility for political content which had been minimized in response to user feedback about stress associated with political discussions. Zuckerberg noted that users are now expressing a desire for more political content, prompting the company to adjust its algorithms accordingly. For relocation of policy teams, in a bid to implement these changes effectively, Meta's trust and safety teams will be moved from California to Texas. This relocation is part of a broader strategy to simplify content moderation and reduce the complexity that has characterized the company's approach in recent years. Political context and implications. The timing of Zuckerberg's announcement is critical, occurring just as Donald Trump prepares to assume office again. Since Trump's initial election, Meta has faced scrutiny regarding its content moderation practices, with accusations of bias against conservative viewpoints. Many sources suggest that Zuckerberg's decision may be an effort to align more closely with the incoming administration and address the grievances of conservative users. The shift in Meta's policies also reflects a broader trend within social media platforms to reassess content moderation in light of political pressures. As Zuckerberg noted, the last election felt like a cultural tipping point, prompting a re-evaluation of the company's stance on free speech and content management. Reactions and future outlook. The response to Zuckerberg's announcement has been mixed. Conservative leaders have expressed approval of the changes, seeing them as a positive step towards reducing perceived censorship. However, critics warn that relaxing content moderation could lead to an increase in misinformation and harmful content on Meta's platforms. Looking ahead, Meta plans to roll out the Community Notes program gradually over the coming months. The company aims to create a more user-driven environment where individuals can contribute to the assessment of online content while maintaining a focus on serious violations such as terrorism and child exploitation. In conclusion, the end of Meta's fact-checking program marks a significant shift in the company's approach to content moderation, reflecting both internal reassessments and external political pressures. As Meta embarks on this new path, it will be essential to monitor the impact of these changes on the quality of discourse and the spread of misinformation across its platforms. Mark Zuckerberg's announcement regarding the termination of Meta's third-party fact-checking program in the United States and the shift to a community-driven system presents several counterintuitive elements. 1. Emphasis on free speech versus misinformation. Zuckerberg states that the transition to a community notes system is a return to the company's roots in free expression. However, this shift may paradoxically lead to an increase in misinformation and harmful content on the platform. Zuckerberg himself acknowledged that this change would mean more bad stuff would circulate on Meta's platforms. Yet the focus on free speech seems to overshadow the potential consequences of that increase in misinformation. 2. User empowerment versus bias. The new community notes system is designed to empower users to annotate content and provide context, which suggests a democratization of information sharing. However, this approach raises concerns about bias. While Zuckerberg argues that the previous fact-checking system had its own biases and led to too much censorship, relying on a community-driven model could similarly be influenced by the biases of active users, potentially leading to a different kind of misinformation or echo chamber effect. 3. Censorship versus over-moderation. Zuckerberg's claim that the previous content moderation efforts were too restrictive and resulted in excessive censorship suggests a belief that less moderation will promote a healthier discourse. This is counterintuitive because reduced moderation could lead to a proliferation of harmful or misleading information, which could further alienate users who seek reliable information, ultimately undermining the platform's credibility. 4. Political alignment versus neutrality. The timing of the announcement coinciding with Donald Trump's presidency indicates a strategic shift to align more closely with conservative viewpoints. This move could be interpreted as Meta sacrificing some degree of neutrality in favor of political alignment. It counterintuitively raises questions about the platform's integrity as a space for diverse viewpoints, especially if the community notes system becomes a tool for partisan bias rather than an impartial means of information sharing. 5. Complexity versus simplicity. Zuckerberg argues that the previous content moderation systems were too complex and led to mistakes. Conversely, the new community notes system appears simpler but could inadvertently complicate the landscape of information, since users with varying levels of understanding and bias will be contributing to the discourse. The simplification of the process could lead to oversimplified understandings of nuanced topics. 6. Trust in users versus mistrust of experts. The decision to move away from third-party fact-checkers, which were intended to provide a layer of expertise and accuracy, reflects a mistrust of experts. This is counterintuitive as it suggests that the collective judgment of users who may not have the necessary expertise is deemed more reliable than that of trained professionals. This shift could lead to a dilution of quality information. 7. Restoring political content versus user preference. Zuckerberg noted that the company will reinstate more political content in user feeds despite past feedback indicating that users wanted less of it. This reversal suggests a disconnect between corporate strategy and user preferences, which may lead to user dissatisfaction and disengagement, contrary to the stated goal of enhancing user experience. 8. Cultural tipping point versus business strategy. Zuckerberg's reference to a cultural tipping point indicates that the company is responding to a perceived shift in societal attitudes toward free speech. However, this framing may underplay the strategic business motivations behind the decision, positioning it as a moral imperative rather than a calculated move to align with political trends and maximize user engagement, which can be seen as hypocritical. In summary, the decision to end the fact-checking program and implement community notes reflects a complex interplay of motivations and potential consequences that may not align straightforwardly with the stated intentions of promoting free speech and user empowerment. The counterintuitive nature of these shifts raises critical questions about the implications for misinformation, user trust, and the overall integrity of Meta's platforms. Mark Zuckerberg's announcement regarding the termination of Meta's fact-checking program in the United States and the introduction of a community-driven system called Community Notes marks a significant shift in the company's approach to content moderation. While many reports outline the general implications of these changes, several important subtleties and potential consequences may be overlooked by the general public. Here are key points that deserve closer scrutiny, along with their significance. 1. Transition from objective fact-checking to community moderation. Significance: the move from a structured fact-checking program to a community-driven approach raises questions about accountability and reliability. Previously, independent fact-checkers certified by reputable organizations provided a layer of expertise and objectivity in assessing misinformation. By shifting to a model where users annotate posts, Meta risks introducing bias and subjective interpretations into the information landscape. This could lead to a dilution of factual accuracy, where the loudest or most organized voices in a community can disproportionately influence what is considered true or false. 2. Political context and timing. Significance: the timing of this announcement in relation to the incoming Trump administration is critical. Reports suggest that Zuckerberg's decision may be motivated by a desire to mend relationships with conservative groups and the incoming government, which have previously accused social media platforms of bias against conservative viewpoints. This context raises concerns about the potential for Meta to prioritize political favor over the integrity of information shared on its platforms. The implication is that corporate interests may shape content moderation policies in ways that could undermine democratic discourse and the fight against misinformation. 3. Emphasis on free speech versus misinformation. Significance: Zuckerberg's rhetoric emphasizes a commitment to free speech, framing the changes as a return to the platform's foundational principles. However, the trade-off, he acknowledges, greater tolerance for misinformation in exchange for fewer censorship errors, poses a significant risk. This perspective may resonate with individuals frustrated by perceived censorship, but it overlooks the detrimental effects of misinformation on public health, safety, and democracy. The potential normalization of falsehoods could exacerbate societal polarization and undermine trust in legitimate sources of information. 4. Simplification of content moderation policies. Significance: Zuckerberg's assertion that previous content moderation policies became overly complex and led to excessive censorship reflects a broader trend in tech companies grappling with the challenges of moderating vast amounts of user-generated content. However, simplifying these policies could lead to a lack of nuance in addressing harmful content. For example, while high-severity violations such as terrorism and child exploitation will continue to be strictly moderated, the decision to relax rules around politically sensitive topics like immigration and gender identity could result in the proliferation of hate speech and disinformation under the guise of free expression. 5. Reliance on user reporting for enforcement. Significance: the shift to user-reported moderation for less severe policy violations raises concerns about the effectiveness and fairness of enforcement. Users may be motivated by personal biases or group dynamics, leading to a scenario where certain viewpoints are flagged or attacked disproportionately. This could create an environment of intimidation for those expressing unpopular opinions, stifling genuine discourse and leading to self-censorship among users who fear backlash. 6. Potential increase in misinformation. Significance: Zuckerberg's admission that the changes will likely lead to an increase in bad stuff circulating on Meta's platforms is particularly worrisome. This acknowledgement indicates a willingness to accept the spread of misinformation as a byproduct of promoting free speech. The long-term societal implications of this decision could be severe, including the erosion of informed public discourse and the potential for misinformation to influence elections, health decisions, and social dynamics. 7. Impact on user experience and engagement. Significance: while Zuckerberg claims that the changes aim to enhance user experience by reducing unnecessary censorship, the reality may be more complex. The introduction of community notes could lead to confusion among users about the credibility of information. As users navigate a landscape where the accuracy of posts is determined by community input rather than expert verification, they may become more skeptical or disengaged from the platforms altogether. This could alter the dynamics of user engagement, potentially leading to increased polarization as users gravitate toward echo chambers that reinforce their beliefs. 8. Strategic corporate maneuvering. Significance: the broader corporate strategy behind these changes cannot be ignored. Meta's past efforts to combat misinformation were often met with criticism from various political factions. By pivoting toward a model that emphasizes free speech, Meta may be strategically positioning itself to avoid regulatory scrutiny and appease a politically diverse user base. However, this maneuvering raises ethical questions about the responsibilities of social media companies in curbing harmful content and misinformation, as well as the implications for their role in democratic governance. 9. Historical context of content moderation. Significance: understanding this decision in the historical context of Meta's content moderation journey is essential. Over the years, social media platforms have faced increasing pressure to address the harmful effects of misinformation, especially in the wake of events like the 2016 U.S. presidential election and the COVID-19 pandemic. The shift away from established fact-checking practices may reflect a broader trend in the industry toward deregulation of content, raising critical questions about the balance between user freedom and societal responsibility. 10. Future implications for other platforms. Significance: Meta's decision could set a precedent for other social media platforms considering similar shifts in content moderation policy. As companies observe the outcomes of Meta's changes, they may feel compelled to follow suit, leading to a broader decline in standards for information accuracy across social media. This could have profound implications for how misinformation is managed in the digital age, impacting not just Facebook and Instagram users but the entire ecosystem of online discourse. In conclusion, Zuckerberg's announcement regarding the end of Meta's fact-checking program and the move to a community-driven approach represents a multifaceted shift that carries significant implications for information integrity, political dynamics, and user engagement. The nuances surrounding this decision warrant careful examination, as they could shape the future of social media and its role in public discourse. Recognizing the potential consequences of such changes is essential for users, regulators, and society at large as we navigate an increasingly complex information landscape. 1. Shift from fact-checking to community notes. Meta's decision to end its third-party fact-checking program represents a significant shift in its content moderation strategy. The company is replacing it with a user-driven system called Community Notes, which allows users to annotate posts and provide context, thereby encouraging a more democratized approach to information verification. This change reflects a broader trend in social media toward reducing centralized control over content moderation and handing more responsibility to users. This system is similar to what has been implemented on X, formerly Twitter, suggesting a move towards a model where community members collaboratively assess the validity of information rather than relying on supposed experts. 2. Political context and strategic timing. The timing of this policy change is intricately linked to the political landscape in the United States, particularly with the impending presidency of Donald Trump. Zuckerberg's shift is seen as an effort to mend relations with conservative groups who have long criticized social media platforms for perceived censorship. By prioritizing free speech and reducing content moderation, Meta aims to align itself more closely with the views and needs of conservative users, which may have strategic implications for the platform's user engagement and overall market positioning during a politically charged environment. 3. Censorship and user experience. Zuckerberg has acknowledged that the previous content moderation systems led to excessive censorship where legitimate posts were often mistakenly removed. This has raised concerns about the balance between curbing misinformation and preserving free expression. The new policies aim to simplify content management and reduce the number of wrongful removals. Though Zuckerberg admitted that this might result in the presence of more misinformation on the platform. This trade-off has sparked a debate on the ethical responsibilities of social media companies in managing harmful content versus fostering a space for free speech. For implications for content moderation and user trust, the shift to a community-driven model may have significant implications for user trust in the platform. By decentralizing the verification process, Meta is betting on the idea that users will engage more with content moderation, thus fostering a sense of community. However, this approach also raises questions about the effectiveness of user-driven moderation and the potential for manipulation or bias in the annotations provided. The challenge for Meta will be to ensure that the community notes system enhances user experience without leading to an increase in misinformation or divisive content, which could ultimately undermine user trust in the platform. 1. The 1938 War of the Worlds radio broadcast. On October 30, 1938, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theatre on the air broadcast a radio adaptation of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. Presented as a series of news bulletins, many listeners believed the fictional story of an alien invasion was real, causing widespread panic. The incident raised important questions about media credibility and the responsibility of broadcasters in disseminating information, mirroring current debates about misinformation and content moderation on social media platforms. 2. The 2016 U.S. presidential election and Russian interference. The 2016 election saw significant interference by Russian operatives using social media platforms to spread disinformation, create divisive content, and manipulate public opinion. This led to calls for stricter content moderation policies on platforms like Facebook and Twitter. The aftermath has influenced ongoing discussions about free speech versus the need for fact-checking and the role of social media in political discourse, similar to the current situation with Meta's changes in content moderation. 3. The 2020 COVID-19 misinformation crisis. During the COVID-19 pandemic, platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube faced immense pressure to tackle rampant misinformation regarding the virus and vaccines. This led to the implementation of various fact-checking and content moderation strategies. However, the balance between preventing misinformation and allowing free expression became a contentious issue. Paralleling Meta's recent shift away from third-party fact-checking in favor of community-driven content annotation. Future outlook, predictions for Meta's content moderation landscape. In the wake of Mark Zuckerberg's announcement regarding the termination of Meta's fact-checking program in the US, the company is poised for a significant transformation in its content moderation strategy. As Meta moves towards a community-driven annotation system, there are several implications and predictions for the future of social media user engagement and the broader information ecosystem. 1. Increased user engagement and responsibility. With the introduction of the community notes system, Meta will shift the responsibility of content verification from third-party fact-checkers to the user community. This change is expected to foster greater engagement among users, as they will have the opportunity to actively participate in annotating and contextualizing posts. However, this model may also lead to challenges regarding misinformation, as users may have differing perspectives and biases that could color their annotations. 2. Rise in misinformation and controversial content. Zuckerberg has acknowledged that this new approach may result in an uptick in misinformation and controversial content being shared across Meta platforms. As the company reduces its moderation of less severe violations, there is a high likelihood that misleading information will proliferate. Users may encounter a wider array of unchecked claims, which could further polarize discourse online. 3. Political dynamics and content exposure. Meta's policy changes appear to be strategically aligned with the political landscape, particularly with the incoming Trump administration. As the company allows for more political speech and reduces content restrictions, it is likely to become a battleground for political discourse. This shift may attract both conservative and liberal users, leading to potential clashes in content and community values. The platform could see an increase in politically charged discussions and campaigns, especially in the run-up to elections. 4. Adoption of hybrid moderation models. As Meta adopts a community-based approach, we may witness the emergence of hybrid moderation models across social media platforms. Other companies may follow suit, integrating user-driven content verification while still maintaining certain levels of automated moderation for high-severity violations. This trend could lead to a more decentralized approach to content moderation where users play a pivotal role in shaping the information landscape. 5. Impact on brand safety and advertising. Brands and advertisers may face new challenges in navigating a landscape where misinformation is more prevalent. As Meta's platforms become less predictable in terms of content quality, advertisers may need to reassess their strategies for brand safety. Brands could become more cautious in their advertising placements, potentially opting for platforms with stricter moderation policies to avoid being associated with controversial or misleading content. 6. Evolving relationships with regulators and governments. Meta's pivot towards a more permissive content moderation policy is likely to attract scrutiny from regulators and governments. As misinformation becomes more widespread, the company may face increased pressure to address harmful content. This dynamic could lead to ongoing negotiations between Meta and regulatory bodies as they seek to balance free speech with societal responsibility. 7. Technological innovations in user engagement. In response to the challenges posed by misinformation, Meta may invest in technological innovations to enhance user engagement and content curation. This could include leveraging artificial intelligence to assist users in identifying credible information or developing tools that facilitate informed discussions. The success of community notes may hinge on how well Meta can integrate technology to enhance user experience while minimizing the risks associated with misinformation. 8. Potential backlash and user trust issues. As misinformation rises, there is a risk of backlash against Meta from users who may feel overwhelmed by the volume of unchecked content. This could lead to trust issues, particularly among users who seek reliable information. Meta will need to navigate these trust dynamics carefully, as user confidence in the platform can directly impact engagement and retention. 9. Long-term cultural shifts in content consumption. The shift towards community-driven content moderation may contribute to broader cultural changes in how people consume and engage with information. As users take on more responsibility for content verification, there may be a greater emphasis on critical thinking and information literacy. This cultural shift could spur educational initiatives aimed at equipping users with the skills needed to navigate a more complex information landscape. 10. Future of content moderation in a global context. As Meta implements its new policies, the implications will likely extend beyond the US market. The global nature of Meta's platforms means that similar moderation approaches may be adopted in other regions, potentially leading to a more fragmented content landscape. The effectiveness of community moderation may vary significantly across different cultures and regulatory environments, influencing how misinformation is managed worldwide. Conclusion. Meta's decision to end its fact-checking program in favor of a community annotation system marks a pivotal moment in the evolution of social media content moderation. While the potential for increased user engagement and free expression is significant, the accompanying risks of misinformation and political polarization pose substantial challenges. The future of Meta's platforms will likely be characterized by a complex interplay of user responsibility, regulatory scrutiny, and technological innovation shaping the way information is shared and consumed in the years to come.